Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the globe. Thank you so much for joining us today for this quick NSENG job search Q&A session. Now, you may notice that I'm in a different environment today. It's because we here in the Chicago area had a pretty enormous storm last night and have lost power and, of course, internet. So when do you go, where do you go when you can't get the power that you need, the internet service that you need? Your local library. So I'm sitting here in the children's section of the local library where I am. So if you do hear any screaming in the background, it's not me, it's little kids that are probably approaching their lunch hour and want to move on with their day. But we're going to get into a lot of material today, and I appreciate all the emails that were sent to me and folks that sent in questions in advance. I'm going to address each of those in addition to anything that gets chatted in here. One request that I have for all of you, this is a great opportunity for you to network with other people and exchange, introductions with one another, and I encourage it. But if you do have a question, the only thing I ask you to do is when you type in your question, type in the word question in all caps first before moving on with your question. This way, I'll be able to recognize it from all of the others that are in here. This is, something that I'm going to try to address as many of these questions as I can with the time that we've got. So anyway, let's move on, and we'll start to get into the questions in just a moment. I'm just going to share a couple things with you about NSENG that I think may be helpful to those of you that are in a job search. NSENG is the largest job search organization in the United States. We have over 11,500 members. I have more than one member landing a job every single day of the week. And we have probably, on average, about 3 new members joining the group each day. There's a lot of great resources within the group. We're going to talk about some of those resources that are available to you. The membership, again, once you join the group, you're going to get 2 free webinar recordings from me. One's about how to shorten your job search, and the second is a Q&A session I did a while ago. So please, don't hesitate to take advantage of this. The website is nsenginc.com. Also, join our LinkedIn group. It is separate and apart from joining NSENG via our website. Go to our LinkedIn group. It's a great place to have exchanges of ideas with other folks that are in a job search. But of course, we've got 3,000 members that have already landed jobs, and they are active participants in this as well. It's one of the reasons why we have sponsors that are advertising their jobs as well. Here's some of the resources that are available to all of you. I've got 17 on-demand webinar recordings on all different aspects of job search. These are all 90 minutes in length. And currently for the month of August, I have discounted all of the webinar recordings and all of the workshop recordings 30%. So there's still a few days left in the month where you can take advantage of this discount. But you'll see it covers everything from resumes to LinkedIn profiles, ghosting and age discrimination and brain training and things like that. So please take advantage of it. I mentioned that there are 3 on-demand workshop recordings. These are each 3 hours in length. They are a deep dive into very specific topics. The first one is my trademarked What the Hell approach to job search. The concept behind this, and by the way, I received from the U.S. Patent Department a trademark for this, is what the hell do you have to lose by doing things that other job seekers aren't doing? Because we know that 90% of the job search is marketing. And I say that because so much of the job search is being able to stand out from the 100 other applicants who are applying to any of the jobs or companies that you want to get into. The second webinar workshop recording is maximizing the value of LinkedIn. LinkedIn, of course, is a very big component in any job search. I spend the first half of the 3 hours talking about how to search engine optimize your profile, and the second half talking about how to really use the platform to find more target companies and key individuals that can influence your ability to get interviews. The third topic is how to create a job search plan, and I cover all different aspects of job search in that particular recording. If any of you feel that you could benefit from having a coach working with you, the coaching business is my biggest business within NSENG. I work with a lot of individuals in one of 2 ways. I have job search coaching packages. And again, you can see all this detail on the website that are available, and they're tiered: bronze, silver, and gold. I've got one-on-one custom coaching that I can tailor to whatever your needs might be. And if this is of interest to you, please feel free to just email me at mgilbert@nsenginc.com, and we can arrange for a free exploratory conversation. If you are interested in things that I post on LinkedIn, and I do post content on LinkedIn that's all job search related, typically about 3 times a week, go to my LinkedIn profile and you'll see that little bell over on the right-hand side of my profile. Click on it and you will automatically then be notified whenever I post something on the platform. Our next event, which I have not yet posted, but you can go ahead and mark this in your calendars, it's going to be on Wednesday, October 2nd. And I can't believe we're already talking about October. I'm going to be making a half-hour presentation on 7 ways to improve your resume. Not traditional things. I'm going to talk about some of the untraditional aspects of being able to take your resume and make it stand out more, and what kinds of things you can do to establish more credibility for yourself. So again, mark this on your calendar, Wednesday, October 2nd. I'll probably be posting this out either later today or tomorrow, and you can start signing up. For those of you that are looking for free training, okay, and it's not restricted just to people in the state of Illinois, but our sponsor is a company by the name of Microtrain, who's located here in the greater Chicago area. But there are other companies like this in other states across the country. WIOA, or WIOA, is a government-funded program specifically set aside for job seekers. It's a way that they can make money available through their granting of those funds to individuals that would benefit from having training. And I can tell you, we've had, probably a couple hundred members in our group get free training to the tune of anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 if they didn't have, access to this government funding. Again, the training company, like Microtrain, can make this training available to you at no cost because they're going to get paid by the government, which means they can pass along that training to you at absolutely no cost. Here's examples of some of those training programs. So for those of you that happen to be located in Illinois, please go to microtrain.net/NSENG. We have a strong partnership with them. They will prioritize your grant, and they'll work with you on how to complete the application. And once you are approved, you can then choose from hundreds of programs that they have that are available for free government funding. So let's get into the questions. And again, if you do have a question, just put it into the chat. Mark it as a question up front so that I know that this is a question and not people networking between themselves. And I'll address as many as I can during the time that we've got. So let's take a quick look here. I'm going to move the chat over in here so that I can see what questions are being asked. And let's see. All right, here's a question. I'll go ahead and put out here a couple of the questions that were emailed into me first. Here's one that says, I was recently let go from my company and I'm just starting my job search. What are the most important actions that I should be taking to ensure that I get off to a good start? I think there's 4 things that you absolutely have to have in play if you are going to make progress in your search, and most importantly, be in a position to shorten the amount of time it takes to get your next job. First and foremost, you've got to have a very strong value proposition. Typically in a resume, you'll find one that's sitting at the top of your resume under your contact information, and it's got to be a paragraph that in most cases 70 to 90 words summarizes your background, but most importantly, helps to differentiate you versus other individuals who might be going after those same kinds of jobs. The second is you've got to have a strong resume and LinkedIn profile. They go together. The big difference between a resume and a profile is that the resume is really about less is more. How do I say all the right things about my background and the right achievements that I have been able to accomplish in the fewest words possible? It's not easy for a lot of people, and you don't want that resume to get too long-winded. This is why the bullet point was invented long ago, so that we can be very brief and to the point. The LinkedIn profile, however, is based, in my mind, on not less is more, but more is more. One of the things that drives activity to your LinkedIn profile is search engine optimization. This is the keyword matching of what you put on your profile versus what people that are going into the back end of LinkedIn and looking to fill a position for a project manager, a finance director, a VP of sales, an account executive. They're putting in certain keywords that are associated with the skills that the individuals that they're going to interview must have. The more of those words that you have present in your LinkedIn profile and in your resume for that matter, the higher your score is. And the people that get the higher score are more apt to get that initial phone screen. So again, value proposition, resume and LinkedIn profile. The third is you've got to have a target company list. And like any product we introduce into the marketplace, we tend to make products that are aligned with certain segments of the market. We're going after certain kinds of companies or individuals that if we're selling to individuals or consumers, we're going after people with certain demographic environments. So we want people that are of a certain age, we might want people of a certain gender, we want folks that have certain backgrounds. Well, the same is true of a job seeker, because now you are that new product we're trying to launch into the marketplace. And the fact is that you've got to be able to identify who are the companies you want to go after, and never stop at sending a way in which to make your presence known to a company simply because they don't have an advertised job. Absolutely not. Oftentimes, the hidden job market is just as big as the advertised market. And I can tell you, there are a lot of jobs that don't appear on LinkedIn or Career Builder or Indeed. They're sitting in someone's head, or oftentimes with a strong email, and we'll talk about that in a second, you can really pique their interest and create opportunities for yourself that otherwise would never exist. So value proposition, resume and LinkedIn profile, target company list that gets not only the list of companies, but also the individuals in those companies that you want to get the attention of. And then the fourth one that a lot of people don't take the time to do is an email cover letter. There's been a lot of research done in this area. And I know that about 2 out of every 3 job seekers don't bother to send an email cover letter, essentially an email that gets right to the point. And the studies show that probably over 80% of hiring managers like to read those because it shows them how you can write. It's convincing because you're tying specific things in your background that link to the most important requirements of the job. And it shows the initiative that most job seekers aren't showing today. These are all areas that I spend a lot of time coaching people on. And the fact is that your ability to write well is such an important part of the job search. It is very powerful. Every job has a requirement to be able to communicate well in writing. And so many people just, have not done a good job of marketing themselves to companies that are of interest to them. So I hope that helps address that question. Here's another question that came in. I was laid off in May after 21 years with my company. I'm in my 60s, but I'm nowhere near retiring. How can I overcome age discrimination? I haven't experienced it personally yet, but I've heard about a lot of people who have. Well, a couple things. One is the training that I mentioned. If there are areas that you have gaps in your skill sets, you should go ahead and get training, whether it's free from the WIOA program or elsewhere. There's a lot of great training here on LinkedIn as well. You want to make sure you stay current with technology, and we know that technology is it's a moving target. You've got to make sure that you're up on the industry trends going on in the products or services or markets that you serve in whatever job it might be. And one thing that I think that a lot of people probably haven't taken the time to do is I would suggest that you create a 90-day onboarding plan for the positions that would be of interest to you. This is a great way to take the initiative and show people that you're thinking ahead. What can you do, or what would you do if you had an opportunity to move into this role that they're trying to fill? What would you do in the first 30, the second 30, and the third 30 days? It shows you are very proactive. It shows that you take the initiative. It shows that you would envision yourself in the role. But most importantly, it shows that you have a process and a methodology whereby you can be very productive early on should they decide to hire you for the position. So, don't think that you have to just simply apply and hope for the best. That's the worst strategy that people can use. It doesn't get you the progress that you want. But this is where the emailing out to companies And several individuals in those companies can make a huge difference in your project and your process, in your progress. So here's a question that was just chatted in. How often should we follow up with contacts in our target companies? So let's just take an example. Let's say that you have a list of 30, 40, 50 companies. First thing you want to do is identify, 3, 4, or 5 people in those firms that are likely to be in the sphere of influence, people that are likely to be involved in the interview process. Now, if you're not looking for a job in HR or talent recruitment, that organization is not going to be a critical part of the hiring process. You got to find the hiring manager and the people that are that person's peers, because those are the folks that have the power to make decisions, that have the budget and have the ability to influence the decisions. So if you have an interview, for example, well, you want to send a follow-up email later that day or the next day. Okay. If you have networking contacts that have introduced you into somebody, okay, because there's a lot of different ways you can follow up. You want to make sure you keep the person who made the introduction, in the queue. You want to make sure that they know and understand that you've gone ahead and taken action. You appreciate the introduction that they made. If you make contact with that person that you were introduced to and you haven't heard anything, send them an email. This is one of the important things in networking, that you want to make sure that when somebody makes an introduction for you on your behalf into an individual in a company that's of interest, ask them to copy you on the correspondence. This way you'll know that it was in fact sent, and you'll know exactly when it was sent. Give them 3 days to respond to you. And if you don't hear something back, just take that email that somebody introduced you with and put your own note on top of it. But one of the best ways to follow up is really making phone calls. If you send out emails or you respond to positions, there's nothing wrong with making a phone call. Okay, but make it directly to the person who's in the position to make the hiring decision. So I think those are some of the things, and obviously, following up, takes on many different aspects depending upon what you might be looking to do, whether it's through networking or through contacting a company directly. Here's another question that was chatted in. How much is too much when using ChatGPT? Oh, okay, this is a great question, especially for cover letters and LinkedIn profiles. I'm new to searching for a new job and new to AI and don't want to sound like a machine. Well, you've mentioned a very critical point. You don't want to sound like a machine. And the fact is that there are many people who are using ChatGPT today. Now, some of us may remember back when we were in college, plagiarism was a big deal. And if you were ever accused of plagiarizing, you got an F on that paper. It sometimes got individuals an F in the grade. And ChatGPT, to some regards, can be viewed that way. So I think it's a great tool for helping accumulate, some information. But in the end, the writing has to be done by you. It's got to be your voice. Okay. The fact is that with so many people using ChatGPT, I can tell you there are a lot of companies that are getting email cover letters or resumes that are worded almost identical to one another. And that's a problem. And when you've got people who are looking at a lot of resumes, they can detect, folks, if they're good at this, they can detect people who have resorted to using ChatGPT word for word to describe some of the things that they've done in their background or the responsibilities that they've had. So I think it's a great tool for research and to help provide you, with some topics or some areas that you might want to, to address. But I wouldn't become too dependent on it because in the end, the writing and the writing style needs to be yours. Here's a question that was emailed into me with regard to LinkedIn. Is the premium membership on LinkedIn valuable? Now, if yes, why? I've heard mixed reviews on this. It's a great question because there's a lot of folks that are using the free version of LinkedIn, but some of you are paying the $29 a month to have premium. Here's the benefits of it, and I'm not trying to sell anybody on this, but one thing you should do if you haven't, take advantage of the free 30-day trial. It'll give you a chance to see whether or not you think it has value. But here are a few of the things that you get in the premium version of LinkedIn that you don't get with the basic. One is you're going to be able to see who's viewed your profile. This is important to a job seeker. You want to know who's looking at you. Who do you want to reach back out to because they checked out your profile? They might have been looking to and considering you for a potential position. When you have the premium version of LinkedIn, you also get free access to LinkedIn Learning. Now, LinkedIn has hundreds of courses online that you then could take. And for some of you, this would be a great way to get some additional training. You can send, I believe it's up to about 15 in-mails a month. It's not a very large number, so it doesn't have a tremendous amount of value. But I think you really ought to consider, if you haven't yet, go ahead and take the 30-day trial. And then at the end of that time frame, you can decide whether or not this is something of value to you. Here's another question that was sent in. When I write a post on LinkedIn, I don't seem to get many editing capabilities like bolding or italics or other things like that. Is there a way to do this? Okay, and I like this question because a lot of people aren't aware that you can do some italics and bolding. And I don't know, how many other things, but I'm going to make a quick suggestion to some of you. Some of you may be familiar with Unicode. Unicode is an international encoding standard. And allows you to take like Word text, and in certain areas of it, you can have it bolded or italicized. So I'm going to mention a website to you that is a good one to look at. It's called yaytext.com. That's YAYTEXT.com/bold, BOLD hyphen italic. ITALIC. This will give you the ability to take words and bold them or italicize them in different fonts so that things that you might be posting on LinkedIn or putting into your LinkedIn profile can stand out a little bit more than they might otherwise. So here's one other question on LinkedIn. I heard you should add graphics to your LinkedIn profile to add some branding to it. What's your opinion on this? So with regard to this, the area up on your LinkedIn profile, which you've got your photo over on the left-hand side, and then next to it is the banner. The banner is really precious real estate. It's the most visible part of your profile, and you've got to put it to use for yourself because this is a great marketing opportunity. So depending upon what your industry is or what your job function is, the most important thing is the text that you decide to lay in there. Okay, I'm not talking about your headline that sits below this. But you can take a PowerPoint slide, you can put, or Canva or any other design software, and create your banner, save it, and then put it into a JPEG file, and you can then upload it into your LinkedIn profile. For some people who are let's say you're in sales, you might want to have your job title or your branding statement, and under it maybe 3 bullets. Don't make the type too small because a lot of people are looking at profiles on their cell phones, and if the type is too small, they won't be able to read it. So make it, I would say nothing smaller than 20-point Arial as an example. And so put your title or the kind of job function, and then list 3 or 4 bullets underneath it. Again, very brief. For a salesperson, it might be prospecting, lead generation, and new customer acquisition. Okay, different for finance or for legal or for operations folks or product development, but you decide what those key skills are and things that you want folks to be able to identify you by. This is how you really make use of that space and get people, understanding who you are before they even start to look at the details. And it's a great way to get people to look further down in your profile. Here's a question that came in. I've had a few transitions in a row that shortened my tenure with companies. COVID obviously was a contributor to that. Some of the top tier retained search firms are reticent to present me without references, as they use a rule of 3 years of tenure as a minimum. I do have good references, but this is, and they're all explainable transitions, but this is hindering my marketability. How do I handle this? Okay, so the fact is that COVID affected so many people. And I think, hiring companies are much more understanding of that. So you have to just, you have to be able to explain very matter of fact, without getting too wordy, exactly why you moved from one job to the next. The fact is, the references don't really come into play unless the company is thinking about making you a job offer. But the fact is that be very clear. If it was a downturn in the business, well, that involved many people in the company, not just you. But explain what the issues are very clearly. Don't turn it into an opportunity for you to say that the environment was very volatile and it was very political. Those kinds of things are not going to serve you well. But the fact is that if you explain very matter of factly how it was that they ultimately had to let you go, and in many cases, you were not the only one let go. There might have been a very big, reduction in the force that affected many people. Very understandable. So yes, I recognize that there are many folks that may have had short stints. What you don't want to do is represent yourself or be perceived as a job hopper. Okay, those are the kind of folks that a recruiter, whether they're internal or external, tend to stay away from. They tend to avoid those folks for fear that, well, if we bring them on here within 12 months, they're going to probably be moving on to something else. So as long as you've got very clear explanations as to what took place that prompted your departure from the company, I think that that should really help. Let's see if there's a couple other questions that have come in here. The URL. Okay, so the URL that I mentioned, again, this is the one for bolding and italic. It's yaytext.com, yaytext.com /bold-italic. Okay, again, there are probably many others. Also do a Google search on LinkedIn text formatter, and you'll see articles on what you can do to make some of your text on your post stand out a bit more. So here's a question that was emailed into me. Where is that? Here it is. How can I find out about a company's culture? I'd like to find out about their culture before I have an interview. Well, there's a couple ways. Okay, one is Glassdoor is a great website. What you're going to find there is that a lot of the comments are going to be negative. Okay, you just need to accept that, because a lot of people who leave a company and were really upset with how they left or why they left or why they were terminated, oftentimes will take some of that out on the company by posting a negative review on Glassdoor. But there is some validity to a lot of these comments that are there. But just know going into it that the negative comments are likely to be more dominant than the good ones. But that's one resource that you can use. But the best resource is to find people on LinkedIn that you are either connected to or that are a second degree connection to you that are currently working in the company that's of interest to you. The best way to find out what a company culture is like is to talk to somebody who's already there, or somebody who was there and left. Because when you get into interviews, and I'm sure you've all been through this, and you might be asked the question, can you tell me a bit about the company culture? Well, guess what? The answer you're going to get is going to be extremely positive, and it may not be terribly honest. But if you really want a candid and open response, then you got to get it from somebody inside who's not in any way threatened by the question. And again, this is where second degree connections are huge on LinkedIn, because while you may not know somebody who's currently working in a company, you may know somebody who is connected to somebody, and they can make that introduction for you, and then you can set up a time to talk about it. And find out really, how combative is the environment, how political is the environment, how long do people stay, the person who was in this role, do you know anything about under what circumstance, might they have left? There's so many questions that you can ask. and people will be pretty open with you. So I urge you to take advantage of that. Here's a question that was sent in to me. One of my LinkedIn connections made an introduction to an individual who works in a company that's of particular interest to me. It's been a week and I haven't heard back from that person that they introduced me to. What can I do? Great. So what I would suggest you do is take the email. If you were copied on the email that introduced you to this other person from your first degree connection, take that email, put your own note on top of it, and just say, hey, I'm following up on the email you received from John Jones on Monday. Was wondering if you might have a few minutes to talk a bit about the opportunity that I'm interested in. Attaches a copy of my resume. Happy to to accommodate your schedule. And you can't get too persistent, but this is a way to ensure that you get back up to the top of the queue, because many people are getting 80 or more emails a day. Things get buried, they get overlooked. So you want to make sure that you're creating some visibility that otherwise might not be there. And when you have somebody who sends an email, that's a great opportunity for you to follow up. So here's a question that was sent in. I've been asked to make a presentation of 30 minutes to a panel of interviewers, and now I'm one of 2 finalists. Any suggestions on how to make the greatest impression? Well, one thing that you probably will be given if you're presenting to a panel, and it could be 3, 4, or 5 people, you're going to be given the names and the titles of those folks. And what you want to do is put yourself in their shoes. And each one of them has different needs that this particular role that you're interviewing for could potentially address. Give it a lot of careful thought. And you want to have questions that address each one of them and ask them of yourself. Because somebody in operations who needs somebody, to fill this position as a sales manager, what operations needs are going to be very different from finance and from marketing. So think about how you can impress upon each one of those people some of the things in your background that will absolutely connect with their departmental responsibilities. This is where becoming a great storyteller is so important. And I'm a big advocate of storytelling. It's one of the reasons why I think that email cover letters are so important, because it's an opportunity for you to say, here's things I've done in my past that tie to the most important requirements of the job. Also put yourself in the shoes of those people that are part of this panel interview. What things in your past have you done that could help benefit operations, product development, sales, marketing, finance, so that when you are, speaking to this panel, you can speak actually to each one of them in ways, but also be extremely prepared for what you think they might ask, because they each may have a very different impression on what this position should deliver. Here's a question that was just chatted in. Is the open to work banner a good or a bad idea? I can tell you there are different thoughts on this, but I have a very strong view on the hashtag open to work banner. Again, it sits alongside your LinkedIn photo, and I do not think it's a good thing to use. I encourage everybody that I coach to get rid of it if they have it. And here's why. Open to work does, in some cases, create a perception that you're desperate. Now, I know that there's a lot of job seekers out there who are not desperate, but it can be viewed as desperation. Hey, I'm unemployed. Please, reach out to me. But the second thing, and more importantly, is that I've hired hundreds of people in the jobs that I've had during my career, and I know a lot of people who have hired hundreds of people, and I cannot find one single person in my network who ever told me that they were told that for this position that you're trying to fill, make sure that you currently hire somebody who's out of work. I want you to make sure that you hire somebody who's unemployed. In fact, being unemployed is not an advantage. And to me, the open to work banner says, hey, I'm unemployed. And it's in some cases, particularly with external recruiters. Some of them are instructed, I want you to give me 5 potential candidates for the position that you're looking to fill for me, but make sure only one of them is currently unemployed. There are stereotypes that are very bad and misleading and unfortunate, that people who are currently out of work are out of work because they didn't perform well. And we know that's just not the facts. It's not true. But for those people who are hiring managers and can potentially, be influenced by the open to work banner, all the more reason why you really shouldn't use it. And again, there are people out there who will tell you you absolutely should. It should let everybody know that you're out of work. You can put hashtag open to work, in the about section or other parts of your LinkedIn profile, but I would not make it so visible. So here's a question that came in. What's the best way to obtain email addresses for hiring managers in regard to sending cover letters and resumes? Great question. Here's what you can do. Everybody should take down this website, and it's not the only one like this. Hunter.io, HUNTER.io. This is a website where you can go into their engine and plug in the name of a company, and they will then show you examples of the email formats of people that work in that firm. So, for example, I worked at Motorola for many years, Motorola.com. But I can tell you, what was the format? Well, in some cases, it was first initial, last name at Motorola.com. In other cases, it was first name dot last name at Motorola.com. So if you were interested in applying for it, or wanting to reach out to influential people in Motorola, send it to both. Send it to jsmith at Motorola.com and john.smith at Motorola.com. But if you go to hunter.io, it's really quite accurate. Now, we know people at very senior levels oftentimes intentionally go outside of the traditional nomenclature associated with email formats. But that, I think that if you're looking for, a good first stop, hunter.io is one. Another one is Rocket Reach. Again, gives you examples of email formats that are associated with people in those firms. Here's a question that came in. What do you do if your past employer does not provide references? What do you do if your past employer does not provide references? Now, the people that are providing references are you. Now, if what you're saying is, what if I have somebody in my last firm that I want to use as a reference, and the company policy is such that the company doesn't allow their employees to be references, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. And that's something that you'll probably have to explain, because if you're one of 2 finalists, or you're the candidate that they want to make an offer to, you don't want the reference issue to get in the way. So if the company policy of the firm that you were working at or are working at, that you now not want to leave, is that they don't allow their employees to serve as references, I don't think there's much you can do to get around that. You may, just have to explain to folks that unfortunately, my previous employer doesn't allow it, has a very strict rule. Maybe go to some other references that you can think of, maybe if you've worked at other places. But do know that the moment somebody asks you for references, it should be a very strong indication that they are about to make you an offer. So one of the things you want to make sure you do for anybody that you go out to serve as a reference, before you give those references over to the hiring company, have a conversation with every one of your references, or at least send them an email. Give them the job description and tell them exactly what are the kinds of things that you would like them to mention, so that they become really valuable advocates to you, because they can tell some stories and very specific things, and it's coming from a third party, which is great, that will really back you up and mention the kinds of things that you did that added value to their organization. Here's another question that came in. I'm never sure what to say to hiring managers, recruiters, and others when trying to network for a particular job posting. Can I find templates anywhere? You can. I have put together a 90-minute webinar recording on resumes tell, but cover letters sell. And I can show you, and you'll learn in that recording, on how to write highly customized cover letters in less than 10 minutes. In less than 10 minutes. And one of the big reasons why a lot of job seekers don't write cover letters is because they spend 1, 2, or more hours tailoring each one to every single job. But I can show you a proprietary method that I've created that it will enable you to write them very, very quickly, because we build up a library of plug and play modules that will allow you to, decide which ones you want to put into any given, job response. They are also very, very effective in getting you into the hidden job market, companies that don't have advertised jobs. And as I said earlier, some of the best jobs aren't sitting on LinkedIn or Indeed. And you can open up the door very quickly if you've got a very effective email opener. So that's something to keep in mind. Here's another question that came in. What about recruiters or search firms asking for references before you even submitted or are interviewed? That's highly unusual. That's unusual unless the executive search firm requires, as part of your profile into their database, references. Again, same rule applies, that if they do, then let those references know that you have in fact submitted them to, whether it's Korn Ferry, Russell Reynolds, Spencer Stewart, Heidrick and Struggles, that there's a chance that they might be contacted. One thing I do want to mention, as long as we're on the topic of executive search firms and recruiters, there's really, there's internal recruiters inside companies, and there are external recruiters or search firms or headhunters. But there's two different types of search firms on the outside. One is retained search firms, and the other are contingent search firms. Retained search firms are those companies, and it's the kind of companies I've mentioned: Korn Ferry, Spencer Stewart, Russell Reynolds, and several others that are extremely reputable firms, but they've been given the exclusive rights to conducting that search. A company hired them, and they're going to be paid 1/3 of the person's first year's salary for the position that they fill. So if the position pays $200,000, the search firm's going to get $60,000 at the end of the day, roughly, as compensation. Now, executive search firms represent a very tiny portion of the available jobs, because there aren't a lot of companies that can use them to hire large numbers of positions because of the compensation associated with using them. But there are quite a few that for very senior positions, and it's primarily for VP and C-suite roles that they're going to be used for. Now, contingent search firms are headhunters that don't have any exclusivity. They are maybe trying to submit candidates with the hope that they might pique an interest in a candidate to a company, but they do not have the exclusive rights to conduct that search. So I'd be very careful around them, and under every circumstance, if they tell you that they want to introduce your background into the firm, be very clear with them that you do not want them submitting your resume without your approval. This is important, because the moment they submit your resume to a company, they've just increased your salary requirements by in their cases probably 15, 20, or 25%. So big differences between retained search firms and contingent search firms. So let me just close out a couple things, and I appreciate all the questions that everybody has asked. And the reason why I do these is that there's no such thing as a bad question, but everybody is in the same boat in terms of their search. They may have questions that they never get a chance to ask, and opportunities like this are really good for you. Let me just put a couple quick reminders up here. The next event will take place on October 2nd. It will be a 30-minute webinar presentation from me on 7 ways to really enhance your resume. If you feel that you would benefit from working with a coach, I do all the coaching myself. Please feel free to email me at mgilbert at nsenginc.com, and we can have a free exploratory conversation. Take action. NSENG, for those of you who aren't yet members, the membership's free. Go to the website, take advantage of it. You're going to get 2 webinar recordings from me for free, and you're going to have the opportunity to network with over 11,000 members in this group. We've got folks that are highly talented. I do a lot of regular speaking at Harvard, Yale, Cornell, NYU, Howard University, Chicago, Michigan, and many others. So we've got a constant influx of great talent coming into the organization that you can network with. Check out the videos and podcast interviews on the website. Look for that upcoming event. I've got that library of webinar and workshop recordings that are all being discounted 30% right now during the month of August. If you've got a need for some coaching help, please feel free to reach out to me. And again, I appreciate every one of you, taking a part of your day to join us. The job search doesn't have to be a lonely experience. And there's so many people in this NSENG organization that are happy to help you. For those of you that I wasn't able to answer a question that you may have chatted in, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to send you back a note answering the question that we didn't get to. But with that in mind, all the best to you. Take care and have a very productive job search.